Yo, what is going on, guys? Got a video here today from Adamant Mindset, and this is a good one, okay? It is titled, Society Crumbles as Men Refuse to Be Government Slaves. You know, men are opting out of a lot of these things these days. They're opting out of marriage. A lot of guys are opting out of long-term relationships, cohabitation, working, and things like this. And this is simply because men don't see a lot of benefit these days for doing these things. Men are underappreciated. They're treated like trash for doing these things. And so lots of dudes are walking away. So guys, today's video was suggested to me by Matrix of Madness. I'm going to leave the original content creator and Matrix linked in the pinned comment. So make sure you go and subscribe to these guys when you drop your own comment. But let's take a listen to today's video, kicking it off with a clip right here where this man is going to be talking.
You can go back to, say, the Victorian era, and men used to treat women with an extreme amount of deference because the generations living then remembered a time when the world was a lot more difficult than people now remember it being. So the physical inequality between men and women was emphasized because the world was a much more difficult place. Men took a paternalistic and patriarchal view on how women should be treated, and women wanted men to take that. They wanted to be safe, they wanted to be provided for, they wanted to make sure their children were safe, and men did what they could. Now men have won. They, you know, the fact we've got aeroplanes flying overhead and the fact that we're not about to be invaded is the victory of Western man. Then for some reason women decided, okay, well I'm not afraid anymore. I want what you have. You don't do the things that we do, so you can't have what we have. But men just want women to be happy. They want them to love them. They want their approval. And so if gaining women's approval means pretending women are equal to men, or, you know, saying this, that, and the other, whatever it is, they'll do it. And it's completely taken men off of the throne that they sat on. This throne was never imposed by authority, actually. It was imposed by consent. And the second women withdrew their consent for the man to be on that throne, the throne collapses, and the men are just standing around going, okay, well, I guess I'll just play video games and drink beer all day and smoke weed.
And you know what the funny part about this situation is, guys? Is that many women these days are now complaining that men have decided to opt out. They're also, well, of marriage and things like this. You know, why aren't men committing anymore? Why aren't men doing X, Y, Z? Why aren't men chivalrous? But the other funny part about this situation is that you have these progressive womanists who literally pushed for women to be able to work and go out there and vote and things like this. And so now you have women with the ability to work. And what they're saying these days, particularly as they get older, is, wait a minute, I don't want to work. I don't want to go out there and work a 9 to 5 until I'm very, very old. I want a man to come and provide for me. I don't want to be a strong and independent career woman anymore. I want a man to save me. And the men are sitting here saying, well, this is what you wanted in the first place. Now we have double the labor force, okay? People have to have both parents working in order to sustain the average family unit. And good job on that one. You know, you don't need to be provided for by a man anymore. Hey, you can go out there and you can work until you're old, until you can't work anymore. This is exactly what the women wanted.
If you don't need me, I won't do anything. Because that's really the whole raison d'etre of being a man, just to be needed by someone else. And it's always been women.
That was very well said, like you said it perfectly. Now sometimes this kind of video generates a comment, and of course that's not in this comment section, but I find it somewhere else where they will argue back like it was back then, those men the real men. The current men would not go to war or do all that stuff like that guy mentioned. Well, because the current women aren't worth it. Why would he risk his life for the society that hates men? You guys don't understand that. You just think, you just compare with the older guys. Older guys had good women. They had family. They wanted to support and protect that family. The current men don't have that family, and they really don't have any desire to protect this country or society that hates them.
And you know what else is interesting, guys, is, you know, the more common version of that I see, you know, more so than women saying, hey, listen, why don't men go and fight wars anymore and things like this, is you have women saying things like, well, why don't men do insert X traditional behavior anymore? Like, why don't men take women out on dinner dates anymore, for example? And the reason why men don't do this is because they're not appreciated for doing this. And also, for every man that's going out there and paying for a dinner date for some woman who requires it, apparently, there's like 10 dudes who have hooked up with that exact same woman who didn't have to buy her a single thing. So it makes men question, why am I putting in this kind of effort anyway? Why am I putting in all of the traditional behaviors when women these days are not traditional whatsoever?
Australian courts are making orders to remove men from their homes without evidence. Often the first they hear of a court order is when police arrive at their door. Given only minutes to gather a few personal items, they will be made homeless, losing access to their children, families and finances. They are deemed guilty because of their gender. Stop ignoring male victims of domestic violence. Tell your story and call them out. Go to theabf.com.au.
I shared this video because the comments are making me sad. I'm a victim of this. Something needs to change. The system is corrupt. Government thinks this will help stop DV and make it look like they are cranking down on it. It won't. It just ruins the innocent lives. Yep, that happened to me, where the Australian government sees so many fathers losing access to their children. What kind of government is this? Like, I don't understand it.
The strengths of men.
Just by the way, guys, the Australian government, so I'm Australian, they're complete scum. Okay, they pretend like this is the first time I've actually seen them pretend like they care about dudes. They don't give a damn about men, guys. Their family court system is just as corrupt as the rest of them. Okay, women are going to be sided with unless you can provide something that is really quite a smoking gun, as we say, right? This particular society, this government, does not care about dudes. It absolutely does not. You can't convince me with one of these ads. Like, certainly not, man. And again, you know, the government, that when they do these sorts of things, it makes men not want to participate whatsoever. Okay? So don't be surprised when men completely opt out.
And manhood, unfortunately, are being used against men at times. Normal masculine strengths or their ability to perhaps assert themselves being misconstrued. Attacking fathers, for example. When was it, about a year ago, I went to the beach reading a book, just relaxing, and the peace in the environment was disrupted by a lady in the background that started shrieking. Quite a lot of verbal barrage, and I quickly had a glance, and she was actually verbally abusing her husband. And it went on for quite a few minutes. What struck me from that was a couple of things. He actually assertively responded to her. I was quite impressed in his ability to assertively communicate back. And that was particularly important role modelling for their 5-year-old son that was also in the middle observing this verbal barrage. But the other component was her turning around to her son and saying, "Your father's an idiot." And hands down, that's just wrong. So there's this demeaning of the father role in insults like that, for example.
I mean, this is something that happens a lot. And again, nobody gives a damn about this, okay? There are quite literally, unless they've been taken down, I haven't checked for quite some time, but there were, at the very least, videos floating around on YouTube that you could find, guys, that were like social experiments, okay? Where you would have dudes in a public setting, and then you would, you know, have them being abused, shall we say, you know, being yelled at, threatened, whatever the case may be, and just in public places. And nobody would stop for the man. You know, he's got a woman who's going off at him, doing all sorts of terrible things. Nobody stops because nobody gives a damn, right? Oh, the man should defend himself. Again, by the way, men can't defend themselves because the full force of the law falls down upon them, okay? Now, switch it around, and everybody stops. You know, some woman's being yelled at by a dude, everybody stops. They want to make sure the situation's okay. Everybody jumps to her defense. Again, nobody defends men, and nobody quite honestly gives a damn. They really do not, guys. This is why, you know, dudes have to be responsible for, really, really responsible with where they put themselves and how they interact with others, especially women. Okay, this is why a lot of workplaces don't want to hire women these days, because they're walking HR disasters potentially, or they don't want to be alone with women in particular rooms without security cameras and things like this. Okay, it's self-preservation. But let's continue with the video here.
What a situation. The woman can just do anything in public, and men have to just take it and be mature enough to handle it silently, because if he raises his voice or do any kind of thing, of course he's going to jail, because that's Australia. If you don't know what I'm saying, just watch a previous video.
Men deserve to be berated in public. You're being ridiculous. Stop this defending men thing. It's icky. Hold on, wait, no, stop. Role reversal. What if it was a woman being berated in public? Is that okay? Do you think that should happen? No, Sydney, I don't think it's okay to talk to women like that in public. Ugh, you're so stupid. We need to protect women.
Australia really needs to have this conversation. Where women were many decades ago in terms of the silent phenomena of domestic abuse is really where men are at now. I'm not sure if you're aware, our own Australian Bureau of Statistics, there's a statistic in there that 70% of male victims experience assault by a female perpetrator in the home. And that's a higher number than the female victims at 64%. Why aren't we talking about those numbers?
70% of DV acts are done upon men, not by men. Like, wow. Judging by the quality of the video, it seems pretty old, like even 10 years old. And even then it was 70% where the men were being the victims. Now it's similar or even worse. Most don't get reported or not counted because the government wants to hide that and only wants to show the women being the victims.
I mean, not only does the government like to hide these sorts of things, guys, you know, we've got this massive narrative going on right now, you know, protect all women, believe all women, etc., etc. But I'd also like to add this, okay? Many men don't speak up about this stuff because nobody gives a damn. Like, who are they going to talk to, really? Men understand from an earlier age that nobody really cares much for your issues, okay? Oh, you've injured yourself, or you've got this going on in your family life, or this or that, right? People still expect you to have the same level of output that you did originally, okay? Typically, you do not have that shoulder to cry on. You might have a couple of close friends and things like this, but, you know, at the end of the day, nobody's going to throw like a pity party for you. There's typically not going to be a shoulder for you to cry on as a dude. You just have to keep it pushing forward. And this is just how society is, man. And, you know, I think there's a silver lining in that, which is that when men understand that they have this kind of agency, that they're the only person that can look after themselves, as it were, it's a bit of a freeing thought, to be honest, because you don't have to rely on these absolute clowns. But this is why dudes don't speak up, is because it's not really taken seriously anyway, you know? Like, what's a dude gonna do? Oh, yeah, this happened to me, this happened to me. Like, it's not going to go anywhere. People lose their interest very damn quick. They're not interested in your struggles as a dude. Again, this ties into like dating and things like this as well. Women don't care about your struggles getting to the top. All that they give a damn about is whether you're there or not, where you actually are.
Crazy.
How's a man going to talk about that?
Yeah.
But where's he going to go? Is he going to go to some authority and say, you know, my wife is beating me or something? Well, they're not going to be believed, are they?
Exactly. This is part of the social influences and the social determinants of health that we need to really put onto the table, particularly in looking at a national men's health policy, because of these kind of issues. The kind of abuse a man may experience by a female perpetrator, a woman's not likely to pack a punch the way a male would, for example, but women abusers, unfortunately, may be very good at sugar-coated viper tongues. So there'll be a lot of statements that are hit below the belt.
Like your dad's an idiot.
Like your father's an idiot, or you think you're a man, or you think you're good in bed.
There are also loads of studies out there in relation to male domestic violence victims and male sexual assault victims that say that men, firstly, are not really willing to report what's happened to them out of fear or being ashamed. And they also don't consider violence.
This is exactly what I was saying about dudes not willing to report this stuff. But I would also argue that it's, you know, the fear and stuff. It's more so, number one, you won't be believed about this, and number two, nobody cares, and then number three, the issue is, if you're a dude and you listen, you go out there and you say, well, this awful situation's been happening to me, and this and this and this has been happening to me. People are oftentimes going to try and blame you. You know, like you caused the woman to do it or something, or you must actually be the person who's bad. And oftentimes the dudes actually get in trouble more in these situations. Like if you have some sort of situation that's happening at a house and the police are called, man and a woman, they're immediately going to look at the man as though he's the one doing things wrong first. You know, they're going to pull up on the man first, as it were, before the woman. The woman will put on the tears and all of this nonsense and act like the victim immediately. And people are going to side with the women, at least initially, guys. I can't actually tell you how many damn times I've seen this. It doesn't have to be a situation exactly like this, for example, but I've seen so many situations where the woman does something wrong, completely screws over the dude in some way, and then everybody empathizes with the woman, and then only like a week later, do do a fraction of those people go, hey, wait a minute, maybe we should listen to the man's story, or maybe the man was correct. And even then, it's only a fraction of those original people. So men are typically not believed, and they're usually blamed for this. And also, on top of that, nobody really gives a damn. So why should men, where's the incentive for men to speak up in the first place? Men just opt out at a certain point.
Violence against them to actually be violence, because we downplay it a lot of the time when it comes at the hands of a woman.
Do you know what sucks about getting...
Check this out, guys. Look at this. Sorry, before we continue with this clip, I keep interrupting. But check this out. In a 1985 survey, less than 1% of dudes who had been A-worded by their wife had even called police. That's crazy to think about, isn't it? They were far less likely to... I'm just reading the parts that are grayed out as well here. Men were also far less likely to call a friend or a relative for help. Historically, men who were victims of this stuff by their wives were made into objects of social derision. There you go. Let's keep going here.
Charged with DV. I got charged for pushing my wife's hand. Cops offered me 2 to 5 years jail or 2 to 5 years without seeing me kids. I pled guilty to assault because they weren't going to let me home. For pushing a hand when I was grabbed. The fucking legal system is fried.
Speaking of problematic men, the Australian state of Victoria has found a unique way to tackle them. It's appointed a minister to improve men's behavior, which is the country's first ever such position. But not many Australians are happy with the announcement, as they believe this new position actually demonizes men.
Yeah, I actually heard about this a while ago. Of course they're not happy with the position. This implies that men are somehow wrong and men are somehow evil and we need to be educated. Like, what kind of dystopia are we living in right now, guys? Where's the Minister for Female Behavioral Change? Oh, that's right, there isn't one, because men are the ones who are the problem. I love this. The governments will do this crap, guys, and then they'll wonder, they're like, wait a minute, why is the birth rate plummeting? Wait a minute, why is it that men are not opting into relationships anymore? Why is unemployment going through the roof? Men have no reason to participate in your crappy society that doesn't like them. It's really very simple, guys. A lot of men will opt out of these things. And I don't blame these men whatsoever. I don't look at these men and go, oh, wow, guys, you should just go out there and get married, or you should go out there and do X, Y, Z. No, I totally understand why the men are doing this. In fact, I agree. I wholeheartedly agree. You want to come out here with a minister for men's behavioral change? Holy hell. I wish I could say my thoughts here without getting banned on YouTube. But of course I can't throw around some particular words here. I don't like this, is the short of it. This is disgusting.
Australia is currently struggling, however, with an epidemic of gender-based violence, with 31 women being since the beginning of this year. Our next report goes inside the creation of this new ministry and how the nation is in fact responding.
Okay, before we proceed further on and understand what's going on, let's see the actual numbers here. This is a report from June of this year. It shows the offenses committed on both men and women. You can see the victim here is mostly men, 65% of men. But all of a sudden, apparently these men are not part of the problem. It's only problem when the women are victims. Similarly, in these sexual assault cases, you can see the victims are female, which is understandable, 84%. These are the numbers. And what about the rest of the 16% of men? What about their assaults? We want the numbers too. Like, we want to know what age group was affected, because none of that is mentioned here.
And bear in mind, guys, the fact that men don't even report this crap. Okay, so what happened in Australia was there were a string of very awful things that happened towards women publicly, which is obviously disgusting. Violence against anybody is super cringe. You already know this. But then the Australian government decided, hey, we need to take initiative on this, and we need a men's minister for a behavioralist, or whatever the hell the role is, right? I'm dicing up my words here. We need to educate men better, okay? And you go back, and again, majority of the offenses committed against men, by the way. And also with the latter one that comes under SA, again, dudes are not going to report this crap. like, I think we pulled up the article from, yes, it was quite a while ago, but less than 1% of dudes are reporting certain types of offenses, you know? But let's continue here.
With incidents of violence against women increasing day by day, Australia has found a unique way to tackle the crisis. In the country's first, the state of Victoria has appointed a special official who will be responsible with improving men's behaviour. Victoria Premier Jacinta Allen has announced that a local member of Parliament, Tim Richardson, would hold the role of Parliamentary Secretary for Men's Behaviour Change.
Look at this dude. Look at him. Simp McGee over here. Okay. Parliamentary Secretary for Men's Behaviour Change. A nation first. Look how happy these people are, man. We're making a positive change. Holy hell. Parliamentary Secretary for Men's Behaviour Change. Where's the Secretary for Women's Behaviour Change? I noticed, guys, it always seems to be going one way, you know? The men are the problem. The men are the issue. Never the other way, guys. You cannot critique a woman's behaviors or decisions in any way whatsoever these days without being labeled as someone who doesn't like women, for example. Isn't that crazy? But we can have quite literally a parliamentary secretary for men's behavior change, and that's totally fine. We've got grinning political photos going on here. Australia sees increase in gender-based V-word. Let's keep going.
The state is governed by the Australian Labor Party, which deems itself a progressive force for women.
Ah, yes.
Now, Richardson has acknowledged that the work will not be easy. He says he will focus largely on how the internet affects men's attitudes towards women and how they can build respectful relationships.
Ah, yes.
There you go. Just like UK, what was happening in UK. I'm not sure if the law is passed, but if you've seen my video about that, it also had this similar thing where if you hate on women on internet, you will be labeled as misogynistic.
I would say that if you criticize women in any way these days, this is what you're labeled as, guys. A woman can go out here, she can do something absolutely awful and atrocious, and if you sit there and you go, even if you're another woman, by the way, and you sit there and you go, hey, I don't like that. That was pretty messed up what that woman did. I don't agree with that. You apparently don't like women, by the way. Like, that's what's being sold here. If you disagree with anything that a woman does these days, you're an awful person. Hilarious, man. Hilarious. Oh, and also the people that are judging you to be awful, men like this. Government officials.
And even worse, terrorists. If you haven't watched the video, watch that, because this just seems like just copy-paste of that.
Richardson adds, and I quote, "We know that the time to act on men's violence against women is now, and it starts with us men and boys. We must make Victoria a safer place for women and children and work to end the tragedy of deaths of Victorian women at the hands of men." Now, Richardson's new role has given a glimpse of hope to many, but not all Australians are happy with the announcement.
This guy looks terrifying. This is a terrifying photo.
The opposition Liberal Party's Jane Hume has expressed scepticism about its effectiveness, saying the move looked like window dressing. Meanwhile, critics on social media say that Richardson's job would be to demonize men and feminize the culture. Some users have also accused the Victoria state government of blaming all men for crimes against women and called for reforms to fix bail laws to keep the offenders locked up.
Oh yeah, by the way, guys, this is something that they didn't really want to talk about. So these awful acts, which sparked all of this, by the way, the people that did, as far as I understand, I'm not super familiar with the intricacies of this, but as far as I understand it, there were essentially dudes who were let out on bail who should not have been let out on bail. Very, very bad men, multiple crimes, you know, have done a whole list of bad things, and then the judges decided to let them out into everyday society on bail, and what a surprise, those men went and did some awful things. Okay, but of course, guys, we have to blame all men. We don't blame the dudes who were in jail, and we don't blame the judges for letting them out of jail on bail. No, 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 we have to appoint a men's minister for behavioral change. Totally disgusting. But guys, we're going to be leaving today's episode there. As always, remember to leave your thoughts and your comments. We might continue to cover this video at a later time because it's quite a long one. I'm going to leave a link to Adamant Mindset in the pinned comment, as well as Matrix of Madness for sending me today's episode. So don't forget to go and check those guys out. Make sure you take care of yourselves, and I'll be seeing you all in the next episode. Peace.